Today I want to share with you a technique that has helped me tremendously when I was in the middle of massive upheaval in my own life. When I had moved to Australia, about 2 years into that, my husband decided to leave, and we decided to separate. And during that time, I didn't have work yet. I was training as a coach. That's about 9 years, 9 years ago. I was terrified what was going to happen. I wasn't really clear where I was going to go, what I was going to do. I had an 8-year-old son at the time. So not falling into depression and not falling into complete despair at the time was a major effort. However, I was in the middle of my coaching training, and thankfully during that time I learned a couple of strategies that really proved to be incredibly valuable at the time. And one of them was that I developed a discipline, and it was really not a for fun thing, it really was a discipline I had to force myself to follow, was to go for a walk every day towards the evening, usually when just the sun was about to set. Go for a walk for 1 hour all by myself with a little notebook and a pen and just one quality question. There is this thing, I think Tony Robbins, very famous coach, is the one who said that the quality of your life is very closely related to the quality of questions you are asking yourself. Hence, quality questions are really what you need when you need to keep your focus right. And I know I've been going on and on about having a positive, resourceful focus that allows you to look towards what you want to create in life, rather than staying stuck in all the drama and all the problems and being constantly navel-gazing. So I went for a walk every evening, and there's a bit of a technique to it. See, in NLP, in Neuralistic Programming, which is one of the modalities that I practice, one little aspect is that we have something called eye patterns, which means that through observations, the founders of NLP discovered that our eye patterns, the way that we look, actually correlates to accessing different parts of the brain. So there is the kind of looking upwards areas where we access the visual part of our brain, visually remembered and visually constructed. So we are making up images in our head, or we're remembering, for example, what our room looked like when we were little kids, or what our first car looked like, right? Then there is the lateral area, where when you see people sometimes gazing into the nothingness and slightly tilting their head, they're actually accessing the lateral. So they're hearing and focusing on taking in information through hearing. And then you have the lower parts, which is kinesthetic. So often when you see someone sit like this, they are looking down, which means they're accessing feeling and remembering feelings in their body. And on the other side, the AD part, the audio-digital, which is rationalizing numbers, figures, more the math-related engineering type of stuff, but self-talk largely. So often, for example, the eye pattern related to depression will be that you slightly hunch over, you breathe shallowly, and your eyes flick back and forth slowly between kinesthetic, feeling something, and the AD part, which is telling yourself something. So you're pretty much feeling how awful things are and then telling yourselves what a poor thing you are. You're feeling that even more than you're telling yourself a story of why it happened in the first place. So that's an easy one to identify when you see people like this. You probably can relate to that this is kind of one of the ways that depression would manifest. Anyway, so eyes up. This was what I forced myself to do on those walks. So I didn't just walk and kind of look down on the ground. I actually, in thinking about the quality questions I was carrying with me, I was keeping my eyes slightly above horizontal, looking into the sky, obviously looking down enough to make sure that I didn't bump into anything, but looking up and really asking myself good questions. If money was not an issue, what would you love doing? What are the things that you have most enjoyed in your life? What is it that most inspires you? What kind of people would you love to be surrounded by? What kind of relationship would you want to enter one day? All those kind of questions that help you envision a life beyond whatever challenges you are experiencing, whatever problems you are facing right now. In comparison to that, you could obviously walk around and ask yourself, why me? Why is this always happening to me? How am I going to survive this horrible thing? What is going to be of me and my child? But these are questions that the more you focus on them, the more you get yourself into a negative state. And once you are in a negative state, it's really hard to then operate from your highest consciousness and operate in your most powerful way. So it's better to actually focus yourself and almost like a compass needle, point towards where you want to be going. And by asking those quality questions, often suddenly good ideas will be coming. And this doesn't happen overnight. This wasn't a practice I only kept up for a couple of days. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 months that I did this every evening, writing down my little notes. And I still have the notebook, which is interesting to look at it now, many, many years later. And an idea was starting to form in my mind about what kind of life I would like to live, what kind of priorities I would want to set. And again, at the time, I didn't have much money. We didn't separate with a lot of savings. I didn't have a job. I didn't have access to something that would make it easy. Even my best, oldest friends and my family were about 20,000 kilometers away. So things externally really weren't easy. And at the same time, through asking those questions and keeping the focus on these positive things, and by the way, walking is a part of it, being in movement, being in action is a part of what helped also oxygenating the brain. By those practices, I was actually throughout most of this time in a really high vibration. And whilst I wouldn't call this a really incredibly happy time in my life, I was actually doing quite fine. I surprised myself. And from that basis, because I was in a positive state, I was then able to take steps that were supportive and eventually went on a road trip up north in Australia that led to finding the place where we ended up starting a retreat center just a couple of months later. So actually, I made a vision board during that time, and I put on yoga and ayurveda and traveling and rainforest and beaches, all these beautiful things that living, a little bit central in Australia at the time in Canberra was not a given. That was not the kind of place where that ever was going to happen. And I was broke. And yet there were all these amazing things in my vision board. And funnily enough, not even 6 months later, a very big part of that vision board manifested just like that. Not because suddenly someone was there to help and rescue me, not because there was any sort of magic involved, but because I had primed my brain and retrained it over and over again to focus on and look out for the things that I really wanted, to the exclusion of everything else. And when I came across an opportunity, I was able to notice it and to run with it. So this is my recommendation to you. If you're going through a difficult time in any area of your life, really, it doesn't have to be a relationship breakup, but if you are feeling you are stuck in a negative emotion, you are stuck with your thoughts, you are too much ruminating about problems, try this out. Go for a walk every day, every evening, whenever it's a good time. Take a little notebook, ask yourself one good question. At the moment, I'm writing a document with 100 really amazing questions, so email me if you want to hear more about that. And go for a walk every day. See what happens. See what kind of magic you can create when you're priming your brain to bring you what it is that you most deeply desire. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely day. And as always, if you like our content, please hit the bell button and subscribe to our channel so you'll be updated for more.